Stephen Shoemaker's new book questions both the traditional and Western intellectual version of the creation of the Qur'an. Abdul Malik is the key starting point for this challenge. Last time we shared 3 opinions, or 3 at least views, or 3 basically, I would say, critical assessments. Today we're going to share 3 more critical assessments by such scholars who were highlighted in this book. Again, which book we're talking about? Creating the Quran by Stephen Shoemaker. With me here to unpack all of that for us is Dr. J. Smith. Dr. J, thank you again for being here. Last time we talked about the likes of like John Burton or Patricia Cronin. Today you're going to highlight more scholars who dared to say that the standard Islamic narrative about the collection of the Quran, its compilation, has some problems.
So let's go and let's unplug their quotes and see what they say. And these are all coming out of Shoemaker's book. So you get the book, you can have it, and then you can enjoy it like we have. Claude Gilliot in 2006 says this: because the misadventures detailed about the transmission and codification of the Quran, as both orally delivered and transmitted in writing, are so great, the ancient Muslim narratives on these subjects offer no real clarity about what the Uthmanic Codex really means. Secondly, even if Muslims believe that the Quran we have now is the Uthmanic Codex, our analysis of Muslim narratives on the matter does not leave us with the same certainty. So he's very clear. Folks, you may want it, you may even demand it, you may even say that this is the only narrative there is, but you Western scholars, be careful. Even the Islamic traditions don't support you. They're not that clear.
And I want to just highlight what he says. There is no real clarity about what the Uthmanic Codex, and you always ask this question, by the way. He always says, do we have a 7th century Quran? In my view, if you say that what you have in your hand today is what we mean by the Uthmanic Codex, then do you have something to support that that's exactly what Uthman collected? And the answer so far is that you can't find a
Where's the
Quran.
evidence on the ground? It just does not exist. So that is Gilliot, Claude Gilliot, or Gilliot, or however you want to pronounce it in French. Vivian Comero says in 2012 says this: we should not look to these narratives as reporting what really happened. Instead, each of these accounts on the Uthmanic recension was produced and transmitted in order to advance a particular set of religious and doctrinal interests rather than simply to report a set of facts from the past. So there was an agenda here. And she says it's very clear we need to be careful of that agenda. Remember, we talked about the thesis, Lincoln's thesis, those 5 theses. That's one of the things he warned us about. Be aware that almost every written text, every author has an agenda. Mm-hmm. What is the agenda there? Are we really then just being duped by that agenda? Be careful of that. Stephen Shoemaker himself, and he wades into this whole argument. And he says the earliest efforts to remember and collect Muhammad's words came not from a Medinan caliph, but in the distant locales of Syria and Iraq. Well, that's way up north.
Yes.
Medina, way down in the Hijaz. We're going to get into that
what I've been talking about
when we get into the further episodes. These areas were rich with Jewish and Christian believers and traditions. The early versions were disturbingly different from one another, so much so that the imperial authorities saw it as essential to get involved and to eliminate these conflicting memories of Muhammad with a standard version. So here is where he's now putting his foot down. And this is way on page 40 by the time he says this. Now you're starting to see that he's starting to come to some type of conclusion.
I want to show people page 40 of a book this big. See? Page 40. He said that. You can imagine what happens the rest of the book.
Well, let's continue on. Let's go to the very next page where he starts to come to his conclusions. And here's now where we're kind of introducing his paradigm, where he's introducing his narrative or
his conclusion.
Well, his conclusions.
Yeah.
It is also noteworthy, he says, in this regard, that prior to the enthronement of Abd al-Malik's father, Marwan, for the Marwanid Caliphate, or part of the Umayyad Caliphate, 684 to 685, Muhammad himself receives no mention at all in the documentary evidence from the early Islamic polity. Look at that. No reference to Muhammad in anything that we can find that early. He is not named by anyone of the papyri or in the inscriptions. The coins don't talk about him from this period. We are thus left wondering what his importance was for the believers during the first half century. This shift towards public proclamation of the authority of Muhammad and the Quran is most marked during the reign of Abd al-Malik It all seems to happen during the time of Abdul Malik,
Exactly.
he says. This clear move to identify Muhammad and his teaching unambiguously as the basis for the faith of the believers adds further reason for identifying this period as the time when the canonical text of the Quran was produced and proclaimed as an authoritative word for God for the community of the believers. So now he is now putting down his marker. He's putting his marker down, and this is what I've been waiting for. And it took me 40 pages to get to what he's actually saying. Continuing on in the next page, Abdul Malik would emerge as the leader of a potent and well-organized state that would be fully capable of achieving what the tradition improbably ascribes instead to Uthman. There is near universal agreement from every quarter that Abdul Malik was instrumental in establishing and enforcing the canonical version of the Quran. That's what his conclusion is. Now he's going to have to try to prove it. And he's got another 200 pages to do just that. The first 40 pages, he's been giving everybody else's opinion. He's been showing us where the problems are. He's been confronting an awful lot of the academia and the difficulties we're having, the Noldekishwali. Now he's saying, let's now go and see what we can find from what the evidence shows us. And he's already saying where he thinks he's going to go. And it has everything to do with Abdul Malik. So the next episode, we're going to start with Abdul Malik and Al-Hajjaj, those two names together. Hold on to those two names, because this is going to stand in complete or direct contradiction and also confront the Noldekishwali paradigm.
Yeah, and really these conclusions that are reached by Shoemaker are very powerful. I mean, if you think about it, he is for the first time stating, or at least I would say he's among the first to state what we've been talking about Abdul Malik, about Islam from the north, the Quran from the north, Qira'at from the north, Hadith from the north. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to begin to wonder what is the relationship between Islam and the north. The Qiblas, north. I mean, you have so many things that are happening. Even, Mecca and Safa, Marwa, the Black Stone, the shrine. All this, there are ample evidence to point north. And you begin to wonder, why is everyone ignoring this and not even just inspecting it, investigate, put it to rest? Say, you guys, I investigated it. Here is the findings. You guys are all wrong. This is why. No one is daring to go there.
I have to laugh. Because you haven't even read this book yet, have you? And yet you're almost writing this book for him.
Yeah.
He's going to get to every one of the things that you just went through. Every one of those categories that you mentioned, he's going to talk about. God bless him. I mean, this is why we need Shoemaker, because he is actually finally putting to paper what we have been saying, what we have noticed. Those of us in the Sin Sifters have been pulling it up. The German school, the Inada school, Robert Karen, all of them, they've known about it. Some of them for 100 years, they've known about it, but no one's really written it down. That's why Shoemaker is finally doing so. Almost everything you just quoted on the Qiblas, on the problem with Mecca, on the problem with water, on the problem with the northern hegemony, on the problem with Safa and Marwa, the whole thing with Jerusalem, that's all going to come out when we finally get through this book. Hold on to it. We have a lot to unpack.
It's only logical, Jay, to ask these kind of questions. I mean, I'm not even done with my PhD yet, and you're starting to see things when you're researching that prompt you to pause and ask questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to reach a conclusion. Just asking questions alone should prompt people to begin to think and reason with these evidence.
Well, let's start and think about Abdul Malik. Abdul Malik. Boy, we've talked about him. I had no idea Shoemaker was going to go this direction.
Me too. I was shocked when I saw that he went in that direction. I'm like, thank you, Lord. Finally, we have someone who is making you and me look like we're not insane, but rather sane when we're talking about these issues.
Good stuff.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And until we meet next time, this is Al-Fadi, over and out. God bless. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, CIRA International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.